Welcome to another finance video. This video will look at Treasury security auctions, and our goal here is to show how one type of auction works. There are several, and to see the importance of marginal tax rates and, in fact, differences in marginal tax rates among various groups in the economy that leads to some interesting results when it comes to Treasury auctions. So here's how this one goes. We assume the Treasury has a demand for $100 million. And there are some non-competitive bids. Non-competitive bids are bids such that the placers of the bids are willing to take whatever interest rate is determined at the auction. And what we're doing here is showing what interest rate will be determined. So in this example, we assume the non-competitive bid total is $55 million, which means that the government has to raise $45 million via the auction. And we're going to just simply assume that the consensus inflation estimate is 3.5%. E expected value, P dot, is a P with a dot over it, rate of change, the price level percentage. So consensus inflation rate expectation is 3.5%. And now here is the information that we're working with. We're showing different groups in the economy where the groups are distinguished by their marginal tax rates. Okay? Individuals have different tax rates than corporations, and certain pension funds have different marginal tax rates than other entities, and different individuals have different marginal tax rates based upon their income. So we're just going to assume that there are 5 groups as distinguished by marginal tax rates. It's just a simplifying assumption. One group has a marginal tax rate of 0, another 10%, 20, 30, and finally a group with 40% as the marginal tax rate. Their individual interest in purchasing Treasury securities, which involves, again, they're demanding a Treasury security, so they're going to be supplying money to the government. 8.55 million demanded by pension funds in whatever Treasury security is being auctioned here. Maybe it's a 1-year Treasury, maybe it's a 5-year Treasury note or a 1-year T-bill, doesn't matter. Okay, the second group is assumed to have a marginal tax rate of 10%, and they're interested in 25,650,000. So now we note that the cumulative demand at this point is 34.2 million. And let's look at the yield bid. Well, if the marginal tax rate is 0, then they can accept a bid of 3.5%, and because they don't pay any tax on this, the 3.5% will be exactly equal to inflationary expectations, and hence they'll come out okay. Okay. The second group has a marginal tax rate of 10%, and as you saw in one of the other videos, the reason they're bidding 3.89% is if you earn 3.89% and you pay a 10% tax on the interest income, it's like you're earning an after-tax rate of 3.5%. Okay? So that is what is happening here. Okay? So the yield bid. In other words, the first group is bidding for the bonds based upon the yield. That yield bid implies a price for something that matures at 1,000, but you can also state it in terms of the yield. These are most easily understood in the terms of zero coupon bonds like Treasury bills. So the second group with a marginal tax rate of 10% bids 3.89%. Okay, in other words, in this spreadsheet, I just assume that each of these groups is willing to make the loan to the government to purchase the T-bills if they can break even with respect to purchasing power given this consensus expectation for inflation over the next relevant period, 3.5%. So group 3 has a marginal tax rate of 20%. They demand 17.1 million. So now in total we have 51.3 million demanded. Their yield bid is 4.38% because if you have a pre-tax yield of 4.38% and you give 20% to the government, your after-tax yield will be the 3.5%. And hence your purchasing power will be constant. Okay? Group 4, assumed to have a marginal tax rate of 30%. They want 21.375 million. Now the total's up to 72.675 million. Their yield bids 5%. And because with inflation at 3.5%, if they earn 5%, okay, and pay 3% in tax, that means you can see right here easily, they get to keep 70%, and 70% of 5 is 3.5%. So you can kind of see it easily at number 4. And group 5, we assume has a marginal tax rate of 40%. We assume their demand is this. The cumulative demand now is 85.5 million. Demand for Treasury securities. Also the supply of funds to the government potentially. And their yield bid is 5.83%. So the idea is the Treasury, in this type of auction we're talking about with competitive and non-competitive bidding, Treasury wants to, needs to get $45 million because it already has 55 from the non-competitive bidders. And they like that because cumulatively they reach 45 million by group 3. So by group 3 they've reached more than the 45 million. So this is simple. The government will, now this is important, will issue bonds that provide a yield of 4.38% as of the current moment. The bonds will provide a yield of 4.38%. And everybody in group 1 and group 2 will get everything they wanted, and somehow we assume there's going to be some apportioning of the folks in group 3, since we only need 45 and it goes up to 51.3, so we got 6,300,000. So it looks like a little over, about 10,800,000, I guess, of these are going to get that. Or you can just say everyone gets 10,380,000 divided by 17,100,000 of what they want. It's kind of like 10/17 approximately of what they want. And that's another way you can do it. But I mean, you can think through different ways of setting up auctions. That'd be a good exercise for you, just to think through, what's a better way of doing things. Okay, so this auction will go out at 4.38%. It's very important you know that everyone is going to get 4.38%. Everyone who gets a Treasury security is going to get 4.38% as their return. Nobody here gets one. Nobody here gets one. They needed too much. But everyone gets 4.38%, even these folks, and certainly by definition the non-competitive bidders. So everyone gets 4.38%. And that's how this type of Treasury auction works. This example was interesting because it shows you generally how one type of auction works, and it also shows how important marginal tax rates are in determining the yield that's determined at an auction. We can say that the yield bid that is going to be awarded to everyone who gets a Treasury security in this auction will be determined by the marginal tax rate of the marginal investor group. Again, we can say that the Yield bid that's going to be determined is determined by the marginal tax rate of the marginal investor group. Here the marginal investor group is group 3, and its marginal tax rate is 20%. Everyone gets 4.38%. You have this spreadsheet. It's titled T Security Auction Send, and there's a little thing up here I'll show you. Here you can change the factor to different values. Something changed to 2.5, and it changes these numbers, and you might want to practice what the if this were the nature of the demand interest for the auction, what would the bid be? We'll just stick with this one. I just happened to choose that value 2.5. That means nothing. That's just meant to make the spreadsheet work. You need not be concerned with that. So government needs 45 million. Oh, this is nice and neat. Cumulative demand is exactly 45 million with group 2. So the marginal tax rate, and then now, given the current assumptions, would be 10%. So group 2 is going to be the marginal investor group. Group 2, by assumption, has a marginal tax rate of 10%. Their yield bid is 3.89%, and therefore now, under this assumption, the Treasury auction will provide everyone who gets a Treasury bill a yield of 3.89%, and it will be everyone in group 2, everyone in group 1, and all the non-competitive bidders. In the current example, they will all get 3.89%. And you can practice with different factors and see, how things change. So again, you have this spreadsheet, T Security Auction Send, and thank you for watching.